Welcome to the studio with Kristoff Malejczuk. I am recording yet another episode from my duplex in Boulder, Colorado, and some exciting news. I am now on Clubhouse. Yes, before you could follow me on Instagram at Malejczuk, my last name, but now you can also follow me on Clubhouse at Malejczuk, my last name. Now, it's entirely possible that you can't follow me on Clubhouse because you don't have Clubhouse. And quite frankly, most of you listening don't have Clubhouse. And the reason for this, you might be thinking, well, what is this obscure new social media that you have? No, it's not obscure, it's exclusive. It's invite only. Every new person who joins has to join by receiving an invite from an existing user. And the new user then gets 2 invites, which they can give to anyone based on their phone number. So the app is definitely expanding. People are giving invites to their friends, colleagues, connections, but it's a slow growth. And I'm not right at the beginning, but I'm definitely in the cool phase. And please don't take offense to this. I know I'm in the cool phase because most of the people listening haven't received an invite. And frankly, that makes the app pretty lame because I really only have one friend on the app, someone who I'd actually consider that I'm close to. The app syncs with your contacts and it tells you which of the people whose phone number you have are also on the app. And I saw numerous of my colleagues from work, which doesn't surprise me too much because I know that Clubhouse is taking off a lot in Silicon Valley. I mean, that's where its inception was. That's the culture of people who are working at Clubhouse and sharing it. But some of these people, I see who's on Clubhouse, who's received an invite, and I'm thinking, who invited you? Some of my contacts who are on it, I can't imagine who would have given them an invite. But that's all right, because I am on the app. And you know who else is on the app? Pretty much every celebrity. Let me give you an example of a room that I was recently in. Joe Rogan was doing his first room on Clubhouse. And yes, I was on Clubhouse before Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan was speaking to Tim Dillon, my current favorite podcaster and comedian, Lex Friedman, MIT research scientist, Brett Weinstein, American biologist and public figure, Naval Ravikant, an Indian-American investor and entrepreneur, one of the founders of Clubhouse named Paul, I don't know his last name right now, and a female comic who I've never heard of named Leah. And Elon Musk has been on, Mark Zuckerberg has been on, famous musicians are on, a lot of celebrities are on the app. So it's a neat place to be, because nothing is saved either. Sure, some people create screen recordings and upload the Clubhouse rooms to YouTube so you can watch them, but there's no official archive. Things can easily be missed and not recorded. So it's one of those, you have to be there to witness it, which just adds to this allure of exclusivity and drives the demand to be invited even higher. I'll briefly explain the concept of Clubhouse because it's maybe a bit elusive and by no means ubiquitous, but then I want to get into how I got invited to the app. So Clubhouse is a new social media that is audio only, and the audio is live, so nothing is saved. Nothing you do on Clubhouse remains after it's done, with the exception of screen recordings. The principle is to go into different chat rooms, live chat rooms with others, and talk about whatever subject you would like to discuss. You can follow individuals and people can just create a room and you go into the room and talk to your friends or whoever follows you. And there are also club houses, which are these communities dedicated to specific topics, and pretty much any single topic that you could think of, there's a community for classical music, for hip hop, for the love of flags, for engineering for artificial intelligence, there's going to be a Clubhouse for it. You join it, sometimes they have scheduled talks, and every room starts off with one or two people in the speaking portion, and everyone else is in the listening portion. And all rooms are public, so there's not ever going to be a room that is closed off to someone, which is neat. There's this full transparency. So the rooms will start off with one or two people in the speaking section, everyone else listening. If you want to participate, you can raise your hand. There's just a button that you click, and the speakers can choose to bring you up to participate in the discussion. And that's all it is. It is live discussion and conversation. And sometimes these talks are a lot more like conferences, like a certain speaker who is just talking him or herself to the audience the entire time. But a lot of the time it's very dynamic. People are asking others to share their experiences or to contribute certain ideas. So Clubhouse is basically just a series of chat rooms open to everyone who is on the app to drop in and participate in. It's an app for live conversation. Very loosely, it's like audio Twitter, but where none of your tweets would be saved. Let me tell you the story of how I got on to Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse, social media app, founded in April 2020, less than a year ago. But the story of how I got onto the app starts in what I believe is 2013, when I was in grade 12. I went to a school in Pembroke, Ontario. This is a small town that has about 20,000, 25,000 people, small population, and I went to one of its 4 schools. There was an English public school, an English Catholic school, a French public school, and a French Catholic school. I went to the French public school, which happened to be the smallest of all of these high schools because, of course, there were fewer French people in this community than English people. So, of course, the French schools are therefore smaller, and all the French people were Catholic, except for the few of us who went to the French public school. Despite being located in the middle of nowhere, kind of, it's about an hour and a half from Ottawa. That was the closest city, the closest place that actually had great culture and amenities and art and entertainment, and that people would actually visit for a reason. Despite being this small school in the middle of not quite nowhere, we, for some reason, were receiving foreign exchange students from Europe, which baffles me. If I were one of these foreign exchange students who got the opportunity to go for a year or 8 months to Canada, and then I found out I was going to be located in Pembroke, Ontario, first of all, I would certainly request to be relocated. But I guess these foreign exchange students thought, okay, this will be a very authentic, small town Canadian experience, which, to be fair, it was. So it's 2013, I'm in grade 12, and we have a foreign exchange student all the way from Munich, Germany, who is in grade 11 at the time. His name is Louis Yira. Louis was a good guy. I didn't hang out with him much. We were friendly with each other. My school had a total of 50 people in the entirety of the high school. So despite him being in none of the same classes in a different grade, I still knew who he was. I think he took my bus. I don't fully recall. But he was a nice guy. We weren't that close. That's 2013. Time passes. I go to university. And in 2016, I land an internship in Switzerland. So I hit Louis up. I say, hey, Louis. I have not messaged Louis since 2013. It's been 3 years. That's how close we were. We were so close that after he left Canada, I never contacted him again until I ended up in Switzerland. So I say, hey, Louis, I'm going to be in Switzerland for 8 months. Louis says, that's cool. I'm studying at the university in Zurich. I was living in Zurich, so I end up living in the same city as Louis. That's awesome. Cool. I at least know some European who lives in Zurich. And Surprise, surprise, we were so close that I hung out with him like twice in my 8 months there. But that's neither here nor there. I like Lewis a lot, by the way. The reason for us not hanging out didn't have to do with me not liking him. I think he's cool. He's probably listening. I hope he's listening because I'm going to send him this episode, but it's fine if he doesn't. But I like Lewis. Now, every year, as everyone knows, there is Oktoberfest, a large German festival. Oktoberfest happens primarily in September, and it trickles into the beginning of October. But Oktoberfest, maybe a bit of a misnomer, is a September drinking holiday in Germany, in Munich. That's the only place it is. Other Oktoberfests aren't real Oktoberfests. The real Oktoberfest is in Munich in September. I arrive in Switzerland in September, which is just south of Germany. So I think, okay, I am going to go to Germany for Oktoberfest. Hey, Lewis is from Munich. Let me hit him up. Let me see if he's going to be there. That'll be really cool, and I'll know someone who's there. So I hit Lewis up. I say, hey, Lewis, are you going to Oktoberfest? That would be really cool, man. I'm going to go, and I'm pretty excited. He said, no, I think I'm going to stay in Zurich because of my school. But if you want, you can stay at my parents' house. Now, this is a generous offer. Oktoberfest is so renowned and tremendous that people from around the world flock to Munich every year in September to attend. And what does that do? Well, in economics, there's a principle of supply and demand. And suddenly the demand for hotels and hostels and Airbnbs shoots up astronomically. And what does that do? It makes the prices rise. And at this time, when I was an intern in Switzerland, living in Zurich, an extraordinarily expensive city in an extraordinarily expensive country, I did not have much disposable income. So this offer for me to stay at Lewis's parents' place was met with extreme gratitude. So I take a day off work, I hop on a bus going from Zurich to Munich. It's going to be now a 3-day weekend for me with this additional day that I took off work. Once I get to Munich, I take a train, and Lewis's parents pick me up from the train station. They drive me to their house, and they're so nice. Now, of course, I was a bit nervous. I had never met them. My German wasn't that great. I didn't know how good their English would be. Actually, saying my German wasn't great is a bit of an understatement. It was very poor at that time. I could communicate. I could chop it up. I could get my point across. But what's great is they were educated, lovely people who spoke tremendous English and were just so kind-hearted. The night I arrive, Lewis's parents take me out to dinner. So it's me, Lewis's mom, Lewis's dad, and Lewis's sister, who was living with her parents at the time. I think she was studying baking or some similar culinary art nearby to Munich in Germany. So she lived at home. So it's the three of them and me. They take me out to dinner at this authentic German restaurant. The beer is amazing. We're sitting on a terrace. It's a festive time of year. This is not at Oktoberfest, but it's the season of Oktoberfest. So everyone is in this lovely, joyous, warm spirit. And they take me out to dinner. Some guy they don't even know who was Lewis's friend 3 years ago and who had not maintained contact with Lewis since his departure. So this is wonderfully generous. I was so humbled. Next day, wake up early. My plan is to take the train into the Munich city center, do a small bit of tourism because I've never really seen Munich before, and then go to Oktoberfest. But you can't go to Oktoberfest wearing regular clothes. You have to be wearing lederhosen. I did not have any lederhosen. So Lewis's dad gives me Lewis's lederhosen, which fits but barely, because even back then in 2016, I had pretty large thighs, and they've only continued to grow. So I'm wearing the lederhosen a bit tight, but Lewis's shirts just don't fit me quite right because you need to wear a certain type of shirt, maybe a plain white collared shirt or a red checked shirt or a blue checked shirt. You need to have the get up, or you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and it's not going to be the same experience. So Lewis's dad gives me 2 of his shirts for me to choose from. The generosity of Lewis's family abounds. So I leave the house to bike to the train station, Lewis's sister accompanying me. I'm leaving the house wearing Lewis's lederhosen, Lewis's dad's shirt, biking on Lewis's bike with Lewis's sister guiding us. She takes me to the train station. We lock up the bike. She says, okay, so you're going to take the train home at night when you're done with Oktoberfest, and then you're going to bike home. Bike back to Lewis's house? I could hardly remember the route that we had just taken to get to the train station when I was sober. And now I'm expected to be able to bike home at night, possibly intoxicated, because I hear there's some alcohol that gets tossed around at Oktoberfest. I say, okay, no worries, I can do this. So I thank Lewis's sister, I get on the train, I head into the Munich city center, do a small bit of tourism, then head into Oktoberfest. Oktoberfest is a large fairground that is populated by tents. The tents are sponsored by different beer companies, and inside of the tents, it's all the same. I mean, they each have their different flair, their different color, their different bands playing, but inside it's all the same. Just rows upon rows of tables and benches. And the primary activity of Oktoberfest is to sit at a table or stand at a bench and drink beer. What a beautiful thing. So I want to see what all these tents are about. I've never been there. It's novel, it's new. So I'm walking around, I head into a tent, beautiful yellow interior, and they have live music. All of the tents have live German folk songs being played and people are singing. Fantastic. But in order to drink and to participate, you need to have a spot at a table. And I'm walking around these first couple tents, and I don't really see too many spots that are calling out to me. But after walking through a couple tents, I've been there for maybe 40 minutes, I need to get at a table so that I can start the festivities. So I head into a Hacker Shore tent, Hacker Shore being a nice German brand of beer, and I say, okay, enough of being afraid of approaching people. I'm just going to ask to get up on a table. I'm going to get up on a table. I'm going to make connections with everyone there, and I'm going to have a great time. So I see a perfect spot. There's room for one person at this one bench in this huge tent. I see, so I go up, and I talk in pretty bad German to the guy, saying like, hey, can I get up here? The guy looks down at me and says, 20 euro. Said, no, there's no way I'm paying you money to get up at this table. You can't scam me into that. He says, okay, you don't need to pay any money, but we are gay and we will touch you. I said, what? That's obscene. I stand up on the bench next to the guy, and 2 seconds later, he, pardon my vulgarity, grabs my ass. And he doesn't just, lightly cup it, he has a fistful, and it is the first time in my life that I have been violated in such a manner. So I turn to him, I say, what the hell are you doing? He said, 20 euro, and we don't touch you. But if you don't pay, we touch you. So I, refusing to put up with this, disembark from the bench and leave, feeling very dirty and violated. Just kidding, I felt fine, but I did think that the guy was a total ass. So I'm walking around and I see, after 5 minutes, one other open spot, because it's about 3 p.m. right now. It's busy. It's hard to get a spot at a table, especially in these big coveted tents like Hacker Shore. That's a tent you want to be in. It has a reputation. So I see a spot. I start talking to the guy. I think I started speaking English. He said that he was Slovakian, spoke no English. I would have to talk to him in German. So I managed to convey to him that I want to get up on the bench, and he pulls me up, making me pay him no money and also not touching me inappropriately. Already off to a much better start. Now at this bench, they start talking to me. There are many people there. A few of the people know each other. Most of them don't, but it's just this lovely community. There are some Germans there. There's a Canadian guy who went to the University of Waterloo, my same school, and worked at the German Space Agency. There were some Brazilians. We're hitting it off. We're having a great time. But Oktoberfest is a bit like an Agatha Christie novel, and then there were none. People just start dropping off as the day progresses because you start getting affected by the alcohol. You can't hang anymore. So this table, which started with 10 or so people and had a small bit of rotation throughout the day, time's passing, but there's this group of 5 of us who managed to hang, stay together, and we are becoming close friends. Now, these 4 people, so there's me, 4 others, they all knew each other, but they embraced me and brought me into their group. There was Thilo and Bjorn, 2 Germans, with their 2 Brazilian friends, Eduardo and Theo. And because the Brazilians don't speak German, the natural language for them to speak is English, which allows me to participate without issue. I'm with them at the table from 3 p.m. until about 10 p.m., 7 hours of bonding. By this point, they're some of the best friends that I've ever had after just hanging out for 7 hours. We hang out for an hour outside, then we go to a restaurant. We're getting a meal together. It's beautiful. It's just an atmosphere of love. I get their contact information and it's time for me to go home. Go back to Lewis's house. Now, I didn't have any cellular data because my phone plan was in Switzerland. But Thilo, one of the German guys, he tells me which trains I need to catch to get back to the outskirts of Munich so that I could go back to Lewis's house. Now, I should also mention that throughout the day, I had had 5 mass of beer. Now, a mass is what they call the mug that the beer is served in, and at Oktoberfest, there's only one size, it's 1 liter. So I had had 4 or 5 mass. Frankly, I cannot recall. Even on that very day, I could not recall. This isn't an instance of forgetting something due to the passage of time. It was an instance of forgetting something because life was a wonderful blur. So it's possible that I may have been a bit less than sober, but I'm a traveler. I managed to navigate this train system, make my transfers, and get to the correct stop. Now I need to bike home. I managed to find the bike key. The bike is still there. I unlock the bike with some difficulty. And then I see a couple people looking at me who had gotten off the train stop as well with me as I am taking the bike out of the bike rack. And they're looking at me because they're thinking, is this guy seriously going to bike in his current condition? Well, the answer was yes. Now, the next problem that I encountered was completely forgetting how to get back to the house. We had taken some dirt trail part of the way. I couldn't find the dirt trail. Next thing I recall, it's the middle of the night. Right now, it's a bit past midnight. I am biking in the middle of a road. Not like a little residential road, but a road where people might drive quite fast. Some might call it a small highway. But there were no cars, and I was collected enough to know the general direction of how to get back. I end up finding a street that I recognized. I pull up to the house. It's early in the morning. I feel a sense of tremendous relief and gratitude. And I crashed there. And that was my first Oktoberfest experience. And really what sticks out to me about that day was the connection I formed with Thilo, Bjorn, Theo, and Eduardo. We had each other on social media, but truly my connection with them was meaningful and profound and deep. I mean, in that instant, it was like we were lifelong friends. That's 2016. Fast forward to 2018. I get Instagram. This is a new social media for me, and I add a few of these people. I find the 2 Brazilians. I couldn't find the Germans. I find the Brazilians, and I add Eduardo and Theo. I don't message them at all, but they add me back. They knew who I was. We didn't need to message each other because we knew the bond that we had had from 2016. Fast forward now to 2021. I'm looking at Instagram stories and I see Eduardo, who is posting in Portuguese because he's Brazilian. His story, I see the word Clubhouse. And I don't have great Portuguese, but I can decipher the meaning. It looks like he has 2 invitations and he wants people to let him know if they're interested in getting these invitations. So I go to Google Translate and figure out how to say, I am interested in Portuguese. It is estou interessado, something like that. Again, my Portuguese, not great. I message that to him. He finds it funny because, of course, his English is great. There was no reason for me to message him in Portuguese, but it was a nice entry point. He, first of all, is amazed that I don't have Clubhouse, because we had messaged once or twice, and he knew that I work in tech. Clubhouse is flooded by people in tech. But he graciously gives me one of the invites, because he knows that I'm going to be a positive contributor to the Clubhouse community. So he sends me the invite, and I have Clubhouse now. I'm on the app. And this is all because Lewis, the German foreign exchange student, came to Pembroke, Ontario in 2013. So thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Lewis's parents and sister. Thank you, Eduardo, for the invite. On Clubhouse, because there's no content that is saved, no one can see your past audio excerpts from the chat rooms, the only way for people to understand who you are or to get an idea of what you do or where your expertise might lie, or if you're an interesting person to bring into the talking portion of the chat room, the only source of information is your bio. So I decided to craft a bio that would draw eyes, that would put me in prominence. Now, look, this app is filled with people in tech from Silicon Valley, and a lot of them have their companies in their profile name. I saw some guy with Microsoft in his name, and of course people are following him because, wow, that's a prominent company. But I don't want to put my company's name in my handle. That's not really a defining part of who I am. I actually think that's very uninteresting. Who I work for might be one of the least interesting things about me. And if who you work for is one of the more interesting things about you, you're extremely uninteresting. So my bio, I started off with 3 words just to give an idea of my interest, to maybe light a little fire under someone who has thoughts on any of these 3 things, which I think I can talk about, maybe not with expertise, but at least with knowledge and interest, and hopefully I could offer 1 or 2 insights. So these 3 words are Nietzsche, yoga, hip-hop. They're diverse, they're unique, a good way to start. Then my bio continues. Seeking echo chambers of other woke freethinkers who support neoliberal globalist absolutism. Now, I think that is clever because none of that is true. Obviously, I'm not seeking echo chambers. To be purposefully seeking an echo chamber is to acknowledge that you prefer comfort to learning and truth. So I'm clearly not seeking an echo chamber. But it's a nice thing to say, because no one would ever say that. Seeking echo chambers of other woke freethinkers, I certainly am not woke, who support neoliberal globalist absolutism. 3 things that I do not support. Oh, and also between those words, neoliberal, globalist, and absolutism, I put clapping emojis to emphasize my point. Then my bio continues. I say, I'm a poet, influencer, mogul, pirate. And if you pay attention, also it's much easier if you're reading than if I just say it verbally, that forms a wonderful acronym. Let me go through that one more time. I'm a P for poet, I for influencer, M for mogul, and P for pirate. Quite clever, thank you. And then I cap off my bio with two things that I think are irrelevant and that I don't really care about, but that might add some ethos to those who are choosing to bring me up into the room so that I can speak and voice my ideas and shift culture. I say Silicon Valley engineer and living in Boulder. And that's my bio. So if you're on Clubhouse, follow me. When I got the invite to Clubhouse, I was very excited. This is something that I had been hearing about for, frankly, only about a week. I had been oblivious to it beforehand. And I thought, wow, I'm on a new wave. This is neat. I can be one of the first. Maybe I'll even be huge on it. I'll have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. Because what's the app? The app is talking. Talking is something that I can do reasonably well. At the very least, people might just want to listen to the sound of my voice, which I'm fine with. Yesterday, I was skiing, and after skiing, I went to a restaurant for a bit of après-ski, and I'm there with a couple of my friends, and then there's this girl there who's a friend of a friend. I don't know her too well, but she says, "Hey, Kristoff, I listen to your podcast, but I don't really listen to what you say too much. I just really like the sound of your voice." And you know what? That's fine. Thank you. Keep listening. Now, since joining Clubhouse, I actually have not been a speaker in any of these rooms because I don't really have anything to say in a lot of them. I was in a room started by Lex Friedman, this MIT robotics researcher, and the topic of the room was, how long do you think Putin is going to stay in power? Now, I have no insight into that. I have no unique perspective or anything special to offer. So I chose to not raise my hand, despite being one of the first few people in the room when it was empty, and I almost surely could have engaged in a small dialogue with Lex Friedman, this fairly prominent thinker. I hope thinker isn't giving him too much credit. And here's my issue with Clubhouse. I think that there are people who also, like me, don't have many insights to share, yet they choose to share them. They share their lack of insight. So despite not having been on Clubhouse for that long, I don't think I'm going to stay too active on Clubhouse. I mean, at some point I'll definitely become a speaker in a room. I would like that. I would like to try it out, particularly if there's a topic which I can actually speak to. So in the meantime, I'm going to stay on the app, explore a bit more, and I still have my 2 invitations. So if you aren't on Clubhouse and you want to be, you can message me, and if I think you're interesting, I'll probably give you the invitation. Before dropping off of Clubhouse, there's still one more strategy that I want to pursue and investigate. Let me explain. On Clubhouse, you follow clubhouses which interest you, each clubhouse being tied to a certain topic. So there are chess clubhouses, gardening clubhouses, etc. I think I already went over this a bit. I have joined a yoga clubhouse, a meditation clubhouse, a philosophy clubhouse, a psychedelics clubhouse, an MMA clubhouse. These are all things that interest me that maybe I could contribute in, that I could raise my hand, get invited up into the speaker panel, and share something that could at the very least be relevant or relatable. But I was thinking it might be good to get involved in some more fun clubhouses. What do I mean by fun? I mean something that could cause a little social disruption. So I'm searching the app for some of these channels of intrigue and interest. I look up to find a QAnon clubhouse. Surprise, surprise, there isn't one. Then I look for an Antifa clubhouse. There is also not one. Maybe I can just find a vanilla bland communist clubhouse? I can't. So upon seeing that none of these extreme political clubhouses exist, I see that this leaves an opportunity, a hole that an entrepreneur could fill. That could be me. I could create a QAnon clubhouse, and I could create an Antifa clubhouse. And that would be very balanced. I would have an extreme right and extreme left Clubhouse, and I could be the leader of both groups. And then what I could do is I could bring them together and chaos would ensue. One thing I've noticed on Clubhouse is that everyone is extremely respectful. People aren't talking over each other. People aren't being insulting. That makes some sense. I think when you're talking directly to another person in live time, having this sort of virtual audio conference, that's a lot more like seeing someone in person than it is when you're on Twitter, just typing at your keyboard and everyone is so detached from you. But here you're hearing someone's voice. There's a certain amount of intimacy. People are being polite and respectful, and I think that's very boring. I want to have a little fun. But there aren't clubhouses that exist where I could see this fun occur. So this is a vacuum that an entrepreneur, such as myself, could fill. I could create a QAnon clubhouse, and I could create an Antifa clubhouse. And then I would foster these echo chambers, get people involved to just pump each other up so they're drowning in the sea of their own ideology and everyone is blindly happy. And then I could bring the clubhouses, the QAnon clubhouse and the Antifa clubhouse together and watch the chaos unfold. I'm sure this would make headlines. I'm sure that the things that would be said there would most likely be illegal. Potentially some threats of violence. But it would be fun, and this would be a good way for me to grow my brand in the fringes of society. I would get the most paranoid people in North America to listen to the studio. How great would that be? I could be the official podcast of Antifa. Doing a bit of research, I later found out that I might struggle with this brilliant plan because Clubhouse has to approve the formation of any new clubhouses. And I don't think they're going to leap at me trying to create a Q clubhouse. Actually, that's a great idea. I wouldn't call it QAnon because it's obvious what it is. I would call it a Q clubhouse. Then Clubhouse might say, hey, what is this Clubhouse about? The description of the Clubhouse would be, it's a place for people to ask questions. Q stands for questions. And they'd say, that sounds like a wonderful space where people can discuss ideas. But then it would be joined by alt-right white supremacists, who I do not support in any way. And then I could create another Clubhouse. What could I replace Antifa with? I could call it Clubhouse for Radical Equality and Diversity. No one's against that in this climate. Then I would have all of these patriarchy-hating communists join that clubhouse, who I also do not support, and foster another community there. And I would be huge. Now I know that you're probably thinking, wow, this is an incredibly clever, albeit potentially maniacally evil idea. That, of course, I would never do. This is all a joke. But I got my inspiration from this from the Internet Research Agency. Now, the Internet Research Agency is a Russian organization that was responsible for playing with polarization in the US. So when people talk about, Russia rigged the 2016 election, that was a large outcry. People were saying that a lot. The Internet Research Agency didn't rig it per se, but they were an organization that was designed to create polarization in the United States. So Internet Research Agency is a troll farm. They take Russians, they're paid, it's their job, and they work 8-hour days, 9 to 5, sitting at a computer and creating fake Facebook profiles and fake Facebook groups. Well, the Facebook groups are actually real. And they would create them about various topics. They might create them about cars, about something that's of interest to people, about cooking. And then these pages would grow a following. Some of them, of course, would have a very small following because it's hard to create a large social media community. But some would catch on. Of course, some inevitably catch on because they have these farms of Russians who are creating these English Facebook pages that are aimed at Americans and their interests. But then they would start to slip in small bits of propaganda. So they might have a page about cars, but then over time, after they've developed this audience of a few thousand people, every 10th post might have a little tinge of fascism, of alt-right in it. And then, of course, some people will leave the community, but then others would stay and they would just get more of this content over time. And eventually this page that had been originally dedicated towards posting cool facts about cars or the newest cars that are coming out is now a paranoid right-wing conspiracy page. And they would do the same on the left. So it happened to both sides. So that's one thing, is that they're saying, that they were probably trying to get a certain candidate to win. From what I understand of the Internet Research Agency, there was no intent to have a winner, but rather to sow seeds of discord and hate and paranoia into American society. They were trying to polarize the US by creating these groups of right-wing propaganda and left-wing propaganda. Yes, having these online echo chambers where you're told about how the other side is awful and coming to destroy you, that definitely seeds some polarization. But they went further from that. The Internet Research Agency would also organize protests and demonstrations on these Facebook pages. One of the most famous happening on May 21st of 2016. May 21st being my birthday, which is how I can easily recall this date. Two pages run by the Internet Research Agency, one called the Heart of Texas and the other called United Muslims of America, organized protests at the same location on the same day. So the Heart of Texas Facebook group organized a Stop Islamization of Texas rally in response to a new library that had just been built in Houston called the Library of Islamic Knowledge. And the United Muslims of America organized a rally called Save Islamic Knowledge. So these two groups, which have been fed information that makes them detest the other side, and both of these groups created by the Internet Research Agency for the sole purpose of propagandization of the American people, these two groups both organized rallies at the same location on the same day. Now, I don't think there was violence, although the Heart of Texas group encouraged their participants to bring guns. I don't think there was violence, but that just creates a tense environment, a tense atmosphere. It turns these locations and cities into places you don't necessarily want to live. So my Clubhouse proposal was just a recapitulation of the Internet Research Agency's tactics. However, the Internet Research Agency employed these strategies for the purpose of destabilizing American society, whereas I would be employing these tactics to grow my brand. Which, hey, would it be ethical? No. Would it be negative for society and the world? Yes. But hey, it's a tough world out there, and I'm trying to get more listeners. And speaking of getting more listeners, I want to thank you, my listeners, for listening to The Studio with Kristoff Malejczuk. Tell your friends, tell your cousins, tell your colleagues, you know the deal. Listen to this loudly so that people say, hey, who's that talking? Then you say, oh, that's Kristoff Malejczuk on his podcast. They say, well, how can I find out more about him? You say, you can follow him on Instagram, @Malejczuk. That's my last name, Malejczuk. Or follow me on Clubhouse, @Malejczuk, also my last name. Again, thank you for listening. This is The Studio with Kristoff Malejczuk.